many tanks on the ground. Too many tanks on the ground.
YHWH war machine.
Too many.
I can tell that you wanna see me lose control at the same time losing my soul. Tryna move on the low, but you still can't escape from the view on the scope. If you move, you will go. When the tank's on the ground, better move out the road. Gotta flow like a hookah lounge, who won't smoke? If you choose to provoke, I might loosen the rope enough not to leave a bruise on your throat. The movement's strong, strong enough to make a bunch of grown men spray hatred like cologne. We got too much out here going on in the path you traveling. Rocky Sylvester Stallone, but you and I leave it alone. Michael B. Jordan trying to get a creed of your own. Just leave me alone. How you gonna talk like a boss? You don't even own the keys to your home. You don't wanna see me in the zone. Blood of a king in my veins, I belong on the throne with a queen of my own. Infatuated by the muscle tone of my body, love squeezing my arm. If we in the war with the other side, why you not taking shots at the other guy? Let me summarize, you advertise black on black crime and antagonize. When I analyze it with my higher mind, I miss my Virgo nature with the fire sign. I can see it clearly through my third eye, point of view higher than the birds fly. No code of honor like the samurai, they just target practice for me bullseye. You a clout chaser working full time and your paradigm is a narrow mind. All the angels in heaven listen when I'm sharing mine. I'm giving back to the culture, I'm in the back of the Rover. Why you at home with your back on the sofa? I'm having a moment, your childish behavior, I'm sorry, I cannot condone it. The double-edged sword that I'm swinging, sharp enough to cut your bones through your garment. Yeah, Rock Nation signed a deal with the NFL recently, that's a bonus. And I just wanna know what percentage you getting paid off for your performance. Hold up, Jay-Z, he don't even know you. Trademark name who belong to. 6-figure check, no consul. Come to a point where you can't undo what you misconstrue. Every day you attack Jesus, animated like Black Jesus. For that reason, he's still undefeated like Gorilla Hebrew from last season. The war machine running circles around our competition like track season. It's hard for you to be a stand-up guy, cause in the spirit world, your back leaning. I'm sick with it, got me throwing up. PowerPoint ready, they ain't showing up. No information, just inflammation. Amazon book sales going up. But I wouldn't buy it, even if I was on a diet and had a little money on the side. I wouldn't try it, even if my life was on the line and they pointing at my body with the 9. Why should I tell them a whole bunch of lies just for them to join my side? El Shaddai, all praise to the Most High. If the spirit walking with me, I'm fine. You cannot make a decision, I can see that you afraid of the system. I can tell you have no faith in your vision. You rather sit back and hate on religion. I bet you won't walk in the government building and tell them that you want to interview. Tell them that your name is Nimrod and you demand justice and call them a criminal. Burn up their literature right there in front of them. I guarantee you gon' make the news. At least you be finally famous. Look at the camera like, mama, I made it. Have you ever stood in front of the very personification of hatred? I have on many occasions. The devil got multiple faces. Look at the swing of the pendulum. Look at the shape of the pentagon. I walk in the power of Pentecost. I show up and mess with your pentagram. Tanks on the ground, man.
Too many.
everywhere I go, you know I got the cycle with me. And that's just how it go until my Lord and Savior get me. Y'all do know I'll always love you. Rest in peace to Whitney. My cousins got delivered, yeah, they used to push the brick. And I remember when I couldn't even spend a penny. Went from being empty all the way to having plenty. Now everywhere I go, it's feeling just like Christmas, cause I have a girl. And I don't even know, but I just might take a trip to Nazareth.
Where we going, Phil?
Nazareth,
Nazareth?
Nazareth, just got back from Nazareth.
Hey.
Got disciple with me like I just got back from Nazareth. Got disciple with me like I just got back from
Hey,
Nazareth.
where we going, Phil?
Nazareth,
Pipe up,
Nazareth,
Nazareth.
Nazareth, just got back from Nazareth. Got disciple with me like I just got back from Nazareth. Got disciple with me like I just got back from Nazareth. Yeah, I got disciple with me. I know we be moving through the city. Got a whole team on the same damn spray. Word to the enemy, you better not play. I ain't tryna hear nothing y'all tryna say. Got God in my heart, all in my X-ray. Straight from the bar and I came a long way from chopping that. Hey, hey, hey. Pull up to the scene with Ray Jose. Did it on my face, we ain't even gon' stay. Giving out blessings every day, then it come right back like underlay. We got everybody so happy, like hip hip parade. Once upon a time, the devil wanted beef with me, now he eat it. Chick-fil-A.
Too many tanks on the ground. Too many tanks.
Too many tanks.
Too many tanks on the ground.
Yahweh war machine.
Too many tanks. Too many tanks. Too many.
I can tell that you wanna see me losing control, at the same time losing my soul. Trying to move on the low, but you still can't escape from the view on the scope. If you move, you will go. When the tank's on the ground, better move out the road. Gotta flow like a hookah lounge, who won't smoke? If you choose to provoke, I might loosen the rope enough not to leave a bruise on your throat. The movement's strong, yeah. Strong enough to make a bunch of grown men spray hatred like cologne. We got too much out here going on in the path you traveling, Rocky Sylvester Stallone. But you and I leave it alone. Michael B. Jordan trying to get a creed of your own, just leave me alone. How you gonna talk like a boss? You don't even own the keys to your home. You don't wanna see me in the zone. Blood of a king in my veins, I belong on the throne with a queen of my own. Infatuated by the muscle tone of my body, love squeezing my arm. If we in the war with the other side, why you not taking shots at the other guy? Let me summarize, you advertise black on black crime and antagonize. When I analyze it with my higher mind, I miss my Virgo nature with the fire sign. I can see it clearly through my third eye, point of view higher than the birds fly. No code of honor like the samurai, they just target practice for me bullseye. You a clout chaser working full time and your paradigm is a narrow mind. All the angels in heaven listen when I'm sharing mine. I'm giving back to the culture, I'm in the back of the Rover. Why you at home with your back on the sofa? I'm having a moment, your childish behavior, I'm sorry, I cannot condone it. The double-edged sword that I'm swinging, sharp enough to cut your bones through your garment. Yeah, Rock Nation signed a deal with the NFL recently, that's a bonus. And I just wanna know what percentage you getting paid off for your performance. Hold up, Jay-Z, he don't even know you. Nope. Trademark name who belong to. 6-figure check, no consul. Come to a point where you can't undo what you misconstrue. Every day you attack Jesus, animated like Black Jesus. For that reason, he's still undefeated like Gorilla Hebrew from last season. The war machine running circles around our competition like track season. It's hard for you to be a stand-up guy, cause in the spirit world, your back leaning. I'm sick with it, got me throwing up. PowerPoint ready, they ain't showing up. No information, just inflammation. Amazon book sales going up. But I wouldn't buy it, even if I was on a diet and had a little money on the side. I wouldn't try it, even if my life was on the line and they pointing at my body with the 9. Why should I tell them a whole bunch of lies just for them to join my side? El Shaddai, all praise to the Most High. If the Spirit walking with me, I'm fine. You cannot make a decision. I can see that you afraid of the system. I can tell you have no faith in your vision. You rather sit back and hate on religion. I bet you won't walk in the government building and tell them that you want an interview. Tell them that your name is Nimrod and you demand justice and call them a criminal. Burn up their literature right there in front of them. I guarantee you gon' make the news. At least you be finally famous. Look at the camera like, mama, I made it. Have you ever stood in front of the very personification of hatred? I have on many occasions. The devil got multiple faces. Look at the swing of the pendulum. Look at the shape of the pentagon. I walk in the power of Pentecost. I show up and mess with your pentagram. Tanks on the ground, man.
Too many tanks on the ground. Too many.
Shalom, shalom, family. This is Elder YARAH coming to you live from the Argument League. It's been a while. Peace to the beautiful people in the chat this afternoon. We're going to see what we're doing around this time of the day, but we're going to talk about something. We're just going to have a real talk, right? And just discuss some things. Y'all see the title, right? New Deal for Black Men. A new deal for Black men, right? And we're going to get into a little bit about this topic. And we're going to go over some statistics. We're going to bring some data. We're going to bring out those who are actually looking at the numbers and things that are concerning Black men and the state of Black men and the state of Black affairs of Black men today. This is not a male bashing session or a female bashing session. We're not doing that. Both Black men and Black women have much to be desired, but we also have things that we both should be celebrating about each other. So this is not that. So what we're doing today is just really getting into understanding for Black men and where Black men are today and where we are today, and maybe even how we got to the place of where we are. One thing I will say, that Black men as a whole are resilient, right? The things we faced in the past, the things we continue to face, Black men are still here. At one point, we were considered an endangered species, especially here in this country. But we've tend to overcome those things. We have a long way to go, brothers. But I think sometimes brothers don't really realize and understand the things that they've gone through and why they've gone through those things and where they are today, why it's important not to squander opportunities that come your way. It's important to grasp things in the moment. You don't have time to waste as Black men. We don't have time for folly and fodder. Understand as Black men and brothers how we can trim the fat. We got to move lean in these times. So, but we're going to get into some things. We're going to talk about some things. We're going to address some of the narratives that are out here that we tend to fall into that are not even correct, that have no weight. There's nothing to back it up. It's rhetoric. A lot of it, howbeit racist rhetoric. But sometimes, as much as we rail against racism and white supremacy, if you listen to something too long, whether you disagree with it or not, or agree with it, it becomes a part of who you are. And you begin to move in ways to sort of either separate yourself from those narratives or to give up and say, you know what, if that's what you really think about me, then so be it, then that's what I'll do. So this is what we want to try to do today. And that's really get into the minds and the hearts of Black men. And when we say that this is not a men's only show, I want the sisters to be involved. Please ask questions. And if you have any questions, but we need to get to understanding of who the Black man is, right? We want to get into that. Give me 1 second. We want to get into that a little bit. Now I'm going to put the link in the chat. I'm not opening it up to everyone, so don't feel offended if you hit the link and you don't get put on this panel, because I really want to get this information out. But we're definitely going to get into some things here. We're going to get started. We're going to take off. And I'm going to read an article that sort of inspired this topic, this title. So let's get into it. I'm going to share my screen. And then I'm going to go into a little bit of presentation that I had prepared. And we're going to deal with that as well. Well, maybe I should just go into my presentation as a whole. I think you people, y'all can hear me in the chat. Let me know. I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if you guys can see it clearly as I share. We're going to get into it. I'll put this on presentation mode. If you happen to come on and you're in the back chat, just hold on a second. I'm going to let you in. I'm going to take a break in between these slides. We're going to talk about some things. Right? So let's talk about it, family. We see the title, and this goes very well. Shout out to you, love. Amifro, I appreciate you. Thank you. Kiana Perkins, thank you. I appreciate it. This goes along with the title, and we're going to get into some things tonight, this afternoon. A new deal for the black man, and we're going to talk about this goes with this, the case for the Negro family, dispelling the myth of absentee black fathers. And this is just one instance. And what we're saying here, and I want to say this again, this is not an attack on any way against black single mothers. I appreciate, I extol, I uplift our black single women who are raising sons and daughters alone. I myself was a product of a single mother. My mother had me when she was 16 years old. 16. Right? She had my brother. I have a brother that's a year younger than I am. So that tells you what age she was when she had him. So I myself am the product of a mother. You know, my mother has gone on, had 5 other children. Her, my father had for over 40 years, but my mother went on, received her education. She got an RN, received her education, went into child education, specifically dealing with daycare age children, dealing with that. And she's gone on to receive her master's degree. So shout out to my mother, man, for not becoming a statistic, but showing that even if you are a black single mother, you can overcome and persevere. Even with being a single mother, a teenage mom at the age of 7, by the age of 17 with 2 small children, and you still be able to turn around and make an important impact in society and on the world. Just to give some background on my mother, she wrote part of the education legislation with Hillary Rodham Clinton when President Clinton was in office. She wrote part of the early childhood Head Start education. She wrote a portion of her essay and thesis was inserted into that campaign, and it's still being implemented today. So shout out to my mother, man, for her contribution to the world and to black children everywhere, to children everywhere, and coming through her experience. So shout out to moms, man. Shout out to moms for that. But let's get into it. Right. Let's start here. Right. Thurgood Marshall, right? Brown versus Board of Education decision, right? Y'all put a 1 in the chat if y'all can hear me. Let me know if y'all can hear me. On the day the famous Brown versus Board of Education decision in 1954 was announced, Thurgood Marshall turned to now Judge Robert Carter and now Judge Constance Baker Motley and said, in 5 years, now he said this in 1954, right? This is important. In 5 years, it will be all over, boys, he said, because there won't be a race problem. We will be integrated into American society. Thurgood Marshall, we appreciate the work that you did in the past, but how wrong were you? He says this in 1954 again. In 5 years, it will be all over, boys, he said, because there won't be a race problem. We will be integrated into American society. It is now 2021, Brother Marshall, and we're still fighting to be integrated into American society. That's a whole nother argument in and of itself. Should we integrate or should we not integrate? Was that the best thing for us? We could look at statistics today and see nothing has really changed since 1954, Brother Marshall. But we're not going to get stuck there. And if anybody wants to read this article that I'm reading from, you see the citation at the bottom here. It's the pbs.org from station WGBH. Pages, Frontline News, Shows, Race, Art, Wilson, Gift. So you can go to that link at the bottom of this screen, and then you can read the full article there. But we see how incorrect he was, right? We have not fared much, right? Right, psychopathist. A prophet he was not. Absolutely. But that goes to the bigger picture of what we have to understand, what the plight of Black in the state of Black affairs, especially dealing with Black men, where we are today, right? We're still looking for that integration, right? The case for the Negro family is dispelling the myth of absentee Black fathers. And it's not going to be really what you think it is, people. So let's get into it, right? So, but let's talk about some things. We want to tackle some things, right? So let's talk about the truth of Black fatherhood. Let me see if this link works. All right. This is from the Legacy Project. And they deal with Black affairs, right? The state of Black men in America. And they write this article to give legacy.com resources, the truth about Black fatherhood. That's the source there. You guys clearly can see it. And they talk about the truth about Black fatherhood, right? And let's talk about it. And this is from August 11, 2020. So this is recent information and data that we're dealing with here. Let me get rid of this. I don't want to talk to you. So stereotypes about Black fathers, right? Let's deal with it. Because this is more so not for some of the narratives out there that attack Black men, or to dispel the narratives that attack Black men that comes from specific groups, especially, or maybe sometimes those who bait racism, who bait us with these topics, in regards to the uninvolvement of Black men with their children. We're not really want to deal with that, but we want to deal with these types of issues and how long they've been around in these narratives and why they're still around, right? Why they're still around. So it says the stereotype of Black fathers is absent in Black children as fatherless, first introduced over 50 years ago, right? Has, like many racial stereotypes, refused to die, right? Because it's always easy, folks, to remember the worst of someone, right, than the good. It's always easier to report the worst. That's why news stations and 24-hour news cycles are so popular. Not because they spew good news all day long. Unfortunately, folks don't like to tune in and listen to 24 hours of just good news. They want to hear some tea. They want to hear the crap. They want to hear why. They want you to tell them why they should be scared to go out of their front door, and why they should be scared to walk in a Black neighborhood, and why you need to clutch a person. Sometimes you should. But their purpose is to keep you in a state of fear and to keep you with a negative mindset, especially Black men, about Black men and how we should be viewed by all sex segments of people. Black women, white men, Asians, Caucasians. It's a narrative about Black men and the fear, as Public Enemy once said, is the fear of a Black planet that they want to keep ever before us. And it goes through every segment. It has no race, it has no color, it has no gender. That narrative is created. That negative narrative about Black men is created to keep us in a place of stagnation, right? It keeps us out of opportunities, because before people meet us as individuals, they've already met our representatives, and now are those negative narratives and stereotypes that are out there. So these are the things that we have to make sure, Black men, that we're fighting against in the proper manner. It's up to us. We can't stop the rumors. We can't stop the rumors. But what we can do is create our own narrative that we have something to fight with against the rumors. Because once the truth comes out and the truth stands first, rumors die off real quick. But Black men, we have to know what our truth is. And we have to present a truth that doesn't line up with the negative narrative or the stereotypes that's being given. So we have to give them something. There's no use to you Black men complaining about they won't give you a chance and this, and they won't give me this, and I can't get this, and this is what they're always saying about me. When you're not giving them anything to combat it, howbeit though it may not be true. Once those narratives are created, it's up to you Black man to say, hey, look, this is not who I am. This is not who we are. But let's get back into this article, right? In 1965, white sociologist and Assistant Secretary of Labor Daniel Patrick Moynihan published a report called The Negro Family, The Case for National Action. This report claimed that increasing rates of out-of-wedlock births and single-mother homes among African Americans signaled the coming destruction of the Black families. And he was right. And these trends were to blame for many of the issues, get this people, facing the Black community in America, right? The report has been roundly criticized by many race scholars. But let's look at it, right? Let's look at it. Today, this is from August 11, 2020. It says, today around 70% of Black children are born to parents who aren't married. Rates of out-of-wedlock births have, of course, increased among all races since 1965. Did y'all get that? Out-of-wedlock births is not something that just plagued Black men or Black children. That has increased among all races over the last 40 years, 50 years. So this is, first of all, this is something that isn't exclusive to Black men. This is one thing we have to understand. This has more so to do about how men and women relate to one another and how relationships are developed, communication skills, being open and honest with each other. Right? So these things aren't exclusive just to Black men. Let's understand that. Right? The idea that racial disparities in education, employment, income, incarceration, and more can be blamed not on structural racism, but on this absence of Black fathers has been parroted by pundits and politicians alike. And this is what they like to say. Because Black fathers are absent in the home, the Black community is in despair. Because the Black fathers are absent from the home by choice now, by choice. Because that's what they're implying, that they're absent from the home by choice. The Black community is in a state of emergency. Crime is high. Right? So here are the things. And so when we say, and so even when we say these things are higher in the black community. Well, the reason why these things are high in the black community because we deal with racial disparities in education that white folks don't deal with, that Asians don't deal with. We already know high crime rates are tied to a lack of education and poverty. That's a fact. Pew Research tells that. The Brookings Institute tells us that. High crime areas or high crime communities are linked directly to poor education or lack of education and educational resources and lack of income and poverty. Those are the things that fuel high crime. Not just because black men are absentee fathers. See, that's part of the parroting. That's part of the parroting. Let's continue. Even black public figures have shared these statistics. In 2008, President Barack Obama said during his Father's Day speech that more than half of all black children live in single-parent households. Children who grow up without a father are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of schools, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison. They are more likely to have behavioral problems or run away from home or become teenage parents themselves. And the foundations of our community are weaker because of it. That's President Barack Obama in 2008. But this stereotype ignores clear evidence that black fathers are, in fact, more involved in their children's care and their lives than fathers of other races. Let me read that again. This stereotype ignores clear evidence that black fathers are, in fact, more involved in their children's care and their lives than fathers of other races. So why are we still dealing with that false narrative if that's the case? Let's get into it. The truth, black fathers are more involved. And this is from the Legacy Project, givelegacy.com, resources, the truth about black fatherhood. You can go to it to read the article for yourself. Listen to this, family. We cannot equate the number of unmarried dads to the number of fatherless children. You understand? Did we get that? And this is why it doesn't reflect in the data in the black community. Because in order to extract data from a particular subject, you have to look at specific matters. You have to look at the whole of a thing, not just a part of a thing, right? That's the Gestalt theory, right? The sum of the parts are not greater than the whole. So you just can't take one piece out and say, well, fathers aren't here by choice, so this is why that is. We have to look at all of the pieces. All of the pieces. It's easy to point the finger when you're only looking at things through tunnel vision or through a dark mirrored glass. And they clearly address this. Watch this. You cannot equate the number of unmarried dads to the number of fatherless children. First of all, marriage rates don't necessarily reflect the number of black fathers living with their children. That's one piece no one talks about. So when we talk about these numbers as a whole about absentee fatherism, all of these things have been rolled up and included in that, but no one addresses them individually. They only address it as a whole. They don't address the sum of its parts. Again, let me read that. First of all, marriage rates don't necessarily reflect the number of black fathers living with their children. as writer Josh Lives points out, the majority of black dads, which are 2.5 million of around 4.2 million, do live with their children, even if they're not married to the partner. But what the statistics does, they only look at certain aspects. Well, because black women are less likely to be married. They're not married, so that means there are no fathers in the home, but they're raising children by themselves. So that stat looks really large, but they're not giving you the full view and the full scope. So what you do is you walk away with these half-baked narratives that provide you with nothing. It provides you with the false narrative. And so you walk away simply looking at the sum. You're looking at the whole and saying black fathers are absent and they're higher among black communities and this and that and this and that. But they're not telling you that's the only data that they're looking at. What are they basing that narrative on? Because they're not basing it on the numbers as a whole. Right? And second of all, according to a 2013 report by the CDC, black dads, whether they live with their children or not, are more actively involved in their children's lives than their counterparts of other races. Did y'all hear that? In 2013, the CDC reported that black fathers, whether they live with their children or not, are more actively, more, not less, not equal, not less, not equal, but more actively involved in their children's lives than their counterparts of other races. That means that black men are more active in their children's lives than white men, Asian men, and men of any other race. You understand what they're saying here? We can't keep living off the racist talking points. We can't keep running off the Republican ideology talking points about black men that feeds our wet and whets our appetite, whets our palate, because then it makes it easier for them as they do to point the finger. But clearly, the statistics and the stats and the data is here, family. It's here. Right? For example, the CDC reports that black fathers who live with their children are more likely than fathers of other races to provide physical care. That means bathe them, change their diapers, and feed them for their young children, read to their children, help their children with their homework, all on a daily basis than fathers of other races who also cohabitate with their children. So you mean to tell me black fathers who live in the home with their children, or who may not even live in the home with their children, as this report is saying, are more involved with their children's education than white men or Asian men? That's from the 2013 report by the CDC. And we got to get rid of this narrative about nobody I know knows all black families. Nobody I know knows all black people. We got to stop using these false narratives. You have no data to support the talking points that black men are not involved more in their children's lives than white men. The data suggests otherwise. The data shows otherwise. The report also reveals that among dads who don't live with their children, black dads are more likely to be involved in care, including reading to their children, helping them with their homework, talking to them about their days, taking them to activities, than Hispanic or white dads who live apart from their kids. Non-residential black fathers are also the least likely to report that they're not at all involved in the care of their children, including bathing, dressing, changing diapers, and playing with their children. So what this report is really telling you, if you really want a good father, you better get a black man. That's what it's saying. If that's what you really say fatherhood is, someone who's involved with their children's lives, someone who helps their children with their homework, a father that's talking to them about their day, a father that's taking them to their activities, a father that's inclusive. More so than Hispanic men or white men or Hispanic fathers or black fathers, the black man supports and shows that more. Not less than or not equal to, more. In non-residential, that's fathers who don't live in the home, black fathers are also the least likely to report that they're not involved at all in the care of their children, including bathing, dressing, changing diapers, and playing with their children than their white counterparts or Hispanic counterparts. So where are we getting these other narratives from? Because the data clearly doesn't show it. I'm going to address this and I'm going to keep moving. I'm from Chicago. Grew up in Chicago. The gang issue in Chicago didn't start with absentee fatherism. It didn't start that way. The gang violence in Chicago is that you have many other you have too many factions of young men who are involved in gangs. And I'm going to tell you how that came about if you didn't really know, and search me. Chicago back in the 90s brought in a new police chief. His last name was Weiss. From Philadelphia, I believe he was. They brought him into Chicago. He implemented a strategy in the black community to deal with gangs who were involved in drug trafficking. And it was called Operation Cut the Head Off of the Snake. And what Operation Cut the Head Off the Snake did was round up what we would call back then the OGs. Rounded up all those who were head of all of the gangs, who kept the gang violence down. They kept the gang violence down. You couldn't sell drugs around schools. You would get violated. If you were a GD or vice lord, you know that from Chicago. You couldn't sell drugs around school. You couldn't get caught selling drugs to children. That wouldn't happen. But what they did was they came in and they took those, howbeit gang leaders, those older gang leaders who were keeping those younger guys and keeping those guys in check, and there was loyalty back then. They removed those guys off the street and incarcerated them. And what did that do? That left groups of sons and black boys Their fathers incarcerated now. They left these that were involved in gangs because a lot of them joined gangs because they wanted to be a part of the family, because they were looking for direction and discipline. And I'm not glorifying the gangs, but this is what they gave them. And so when that was removed, now you had these young men and these young boys out here to feather for themselves on the street. So now, where you have lack of education in the community, which is because of racism and white supremacy, because in Chicago, especially through the early 90s, and just up until now, the average per capita amount that was spent on a child's education in the inner city of Chicago was about $700, as opposed to their white counterparts for elementary school children in the suburbs, which was $2,400. So the racial disparity in education, the prisoner pipeline was real. For children who had reading problems and behavioral problems in the Black community, they put them in mental health classes, made pariahs out of them, and made them jokes in the public school systems, instead of working with them with their learning disabilities or their emotional disabilities. So you had a bunch of LD and ED children in these facilities. And in these public schools, they would take them and put them in a room down in the basement next to the boiler room. And education was not the key. The only thing that their purpose was to keep them out of the ones that didn't have learning disabilities, when simply a lot of them had dyslexia, or some had never been taught properly how to simply read or write. And so they were held back. So you had a lot of these things going on. So when people talk about why we see what we see in Chicago among the youth, these are things that have been set in place for decades. Decades. And then I ask people this as well. A lot of people don't like to address this, but that didn't just put pressure on black children. It also put pressure on Black women. Because a lot of them, as they went to work, they used the public schools for babysitters. And that's just a fact. They used the public schools for babysitters. But if they're kicking your kid out because he got a learning disability, and they're saying, well, he has a behavior problem, he's not paying attention in class, instead of them trying to assess him properly, they simply they suspended from school. So now the child's suspended from school. Now the mom has to worry about who's going to watch my child because I can't afford daycare. And so now the mother has to make a decision. Do I stay home and watch my child and make sure he's kept off the streets, or do I go to work so I can feed him and don't have to come home and make him catch up soup from McDonald's packets? So these are the things we have to look at when we talk about why things are what they are. Seeds don't sprout overnight. They take time. The seeds of racism and white supremacy have been implanted in our communities for years, decades, centuries. Right? And so I get it. And we're going to get into why moms can't afford daycare because the fathers aren't supporting them. We're going to talk about why. We're going to talk about that support system in order to support a child, because we clearly see here the statistics shows that the physical support is there. But I know women, and I get it. They need to know where the money at. You can support. It's good you changing diapers, brother, but we need some dollars. in here. I need to pay for daycare. I need to pay for those diapers. We need to do this. We need to do that. We need some money in here. But let's talk about that. We're going to talk about that, right? We're going to talk about that. Mothers reports echoes fathers. Let me continue here. Least we believe that these statistics are skewed by the father's own self-reporting. Other studies based on maternal reports echo these findings. So it's not just based on father's own reporting, as many of you would like to think. You have to continue reading. It says other studies based on maternal reports echo these findings. In a 2008 survey of low-income mothers, not self-reporting fathers, but low-income mothers, researchers found that non-resident, listen to this, people, non-resident white fathers were less involved with their children than African American and Latino fathers. I'm going to read that one again just for posterity. In a 2008 survey of low-income mothers, which included Black mothers on low income, white mothers on low income, and Latino mothers on low income, researchers found that the non-resident, or what quote unquote absentee white fathers were less involved with their children than African American and Latino fathers. In a 2018 study of non-marital births, in other words, children born out of wedlock, mothers reported that Black fathers share responsibilities, again, more frequently, not equal to or less, but more frequently, and displayed more effective co-parenting than Hispanic and white fathers. Where y'all getting it from, people? The stats don't agree with what's being said. Brothers, why y'all letting these narratives go forward? The stats don't agree. You succumb to the narratives, brother. You've laid down. The stats don't agree. The data doesn't line up with what's being said about you, brother. The scripture tells us every man should desire to have a good name. Brothers, you should desire to have a good name. You can't sit back and let these narratives go forward, and you just can't talk about it. You have to show action. Let your actions do the talking. That's how you beat the narrative, brothers. Let your actions do the talking. The stats already back you up. Black women already back you up. The stats tell you you're better. You're better than white men and Hispanics when it comes to taking care of your children and being involved in their lives when you're not in the home and when you are in the home. It doesn't even matter why other folks ain't saying this about you. You got to know this about yourself, brother. You got to know this about yourself. You got to know this about yourself. You can't leave your narrative up to other folks because they're not going to give it to you. You can't wait for the pats on the back from other folks, brothers, because they're not going to give it to you. You got to change it. You got to change it. And it seems that the parental relationship, the strong focus on Moynihan's 1965 report, actually has less of an impact on Black fathers' involvement with their kids than it does on the involvement of other fathers. In a 2009 paper about the child rearing roles of unmarried men, authors note that the father involvement also varies by race and ethnicity, with rates for African Americans being higher than the average American father. Father involvement drops sharply after parents' relationships end, especially when they enter subsequent relationships and have children with new partners. These declines are less dramatic for African American fathers. So even if y'all don't work out and you go get somebody else and he go get somebody else, the stats say as a Black man, he's still more likely to be involved with your children, with you guys' children together, even if he goes get a whole other family, than white folks, than white men and Hispanic men. These are what the researchers are telling us. And they've been saying it. This is from 2009, 2018, 2008. They've been telling us this. Black men, we're not perfect by no stretch, but no one is. But you don't have to believe what they're telling you, especially when the data and the numbers says something different. Brothers, you got to learn how to fight, but you got to learn how to fight the right way. These stats only matter with Black men here. These positive stats, they only matter with Black men that take positive action. You got to learn the right way. Words are just words. Words are just words. But you have to put the work in. The numbers are already on your side, brothers. But you got to put the work in. Let's go through this. We know that fatherhood is an important goal for the majority of Black men. In a survey of over 1,300 Black men ages, watch this, 18 to 29. That's in that range, you know, when some of y'all say, well, you know, we know that the human brain for the male, you know, your brain ain't, you're not even, you know, your brain hasn't even fully matured until you're 25 years old. But we're right in this range right here, people, with this stat. Ages 18 to 29, 83% said that having children is somewhat or very important to them. Black men are significantly more or less likely to have children than other races. That's according to the CDC census report. So that 75% of white men, 80% of Black men, 81% of Asian men, and 83% of Hispanic men ages 40 to 49 have kids. So who's really having more kids? You only talk about 5%. So Black men ain't just out here having babies all over the place and disproportionately to white men. You're talking about 75% to 80%, and you probably got about a 3-point swing in there, negative or plus on both sides. So Black men ain't just out here having a disproportionately more children out here than white men, 75% to 80%. And 81% of Asian men and 83% of Hispanic men. Ages 40 to 49. So where are we getting this narrative that Black men just spreading their seed all around the world? As if white men ain't spreading their seed all around the world. As if Asian men ain't spreading their seed all around the world. As if Hispanic men are spreading their seed all around the world. This is what the numbers, this is according to the census report. This is what they're saying. It says on average, black men have or expect to have 2.4 children. That number is 2.5 for Hispanic men, 2.1 for white men, and 2.0 for Asian men, according to a 2010 report. We can conclude that fatherhood is equally important to black men as it is to other races. Where are we getting these narratives from, family? No, the report is from this report isn't from 1965. We're talking about the Moynihan report and what he projected in 1965. These stats clearly here, as you see, is from 2010. These are barely less than a decade ago. Right? So you can argue with the statistics, but you can't deny them because they are what they are. Now let's get into this. Let's get into this. Let's deal with this really quickly. I'm gonna bring something out here. Let's deal with this. This is from the Brookings Institute, right? Very well established resource and data resource institute. If anyone is a researcher, you know that your statistics that you or anything that you cite from the Brookings Institute has been fact checked, peer reviewed, and these statistics stand. Doesn't really matter what the fallen narratives are. Doesn't really matter what the sensationalists like to say. This is where we are. Right? So this is from a paper that's prepared in November 19th, 2020. We're not talking about old stats. We're not talking about anything old. So let's deal with it. The challenges facing black men and the case for action. Richard V. Reed, Sarah Nzal, and Ember Smith, right? Thursday, November 19th, 2020. This is from the Brookings Institute, right? You want stats, you want data. I'm going to give it to you. I don't have anything else for you but that. And love, right? Let's read this. This paper was prepared for the November 19, 2020 event on overcoming challenges faced by black boys, your sons, and men, your fathers, your brothers, your boyfriends, your side pieces, your booze. For the Brookings Institution, Future of the Middle Class Initiative. Let's read. To be male, poor, and either African American or Native American, shout out to our Native American brothers, is to confront on a daily basis a deeply held racism that exists in every social institution, writes our Brookings colleague Camille Bissett. No other, and this is what she says, no other demographic group has fared as badly, so persistently, and for so long. To meet this appalling crisis, Camille calls for nothing less than a new deal for black men. No other demographic has fared as badly, so persistently, and for so long. That includes white men, Hispanic men, Asian men, white women, Asian women, Hispanic women, and black women. No other group, no other demographic has fared as badly, so persistently, and for so long than black men and Native American men. in this country. To meet this appalling crisis, Camille calls for nothing less than a new deal for black men. New deal for black men. Creating this new deal is one of the core priorities of the Race, Prosperity, and Inclusion Initiative directed by Camille, but also of the New Boys and Men Project, launched back in November 19, 2020, out of the Center on Children and Families. The elements of this new deal will likely consist of intentional policy making in the fields of education and training, the labor market, family policy, especially for fathers, criminal justice reform, and tackling concentrated poverty. This is one area where it is reasonable to hope for some bipartisan action. Witness the creation in 2019 of a new commission on the social status of black men and boys, charged with the recommending policies to improve upon or augment current governmental programs. This bipartisan commission, consisting of 19 members, will investigate potential civil rights violations affecting black males and study the disparities they experience in education, criminal justice, health, employment, fatherhood, mentorship, and violence. The commission is required by law to report annually and make recommendations to improve the social conditions and provide vital guidance for Congress on effective strategies to reduce the racial disparities in education, criminal justice, health, and employment. All of that speaks to a serious issue that they find that affects the income earning ability of black males in this country. Because of racism and white supremacy, they're telling you it's difficult for a black male in this country to support a family. Or to earn enough money to where he can put his family in a place where where crime is not, there are no high crime areas, where he can move his family to the suburbs, or whether he can move his family to areas where the schools are better. We can get a better education. Which we know better education increases the earning potential of men across the board, as well as women. No, women have hardships. White people have hardships. White men have hardships. White women have hardships. Asian men have hardships. Black men have hardships. If you only focus on the hardships, you're missing the point of what the article is saying, Mika. See, what I'm talking about is you not looking at you. If you have a hardship, we sympathize. What makes you think black men don't sympathize with black women who have hardships? No, you don't know this already, Shalisa, but it's fine. But I'll help you. Just hold on. I got you. I'm going to land this plane. I'm going to take you somewhere. Right? The legislation to create the commission was introduced in the House by Representative Frederica Wilson and sponsored in the Senate by Marco Rubio, Kamala Harris, your vice president, and Cory Booker. This is a welcome and positive development. It would be important for the commission to fully understand the challenges facing black men, specifically in order to target policy appropriately. Black boys. And they're making an emphasis on black boys. You know why? Because they know this is where it starts. This is where it starts. Bye. Jump out. See you. This is where black boys, this is where it starts with how our black children are dealt with. Now, who's raising our black boys today? Because there are quite a few people who believe it's only black women. And I think it would be a wrong thing to place the blame or the plight of black boys on the parent that's raising them. Because according to the statistics, it's 70% is black women that are raising these black boys who are doing all the crime and the killing and the murdering and the drug dealing. Now, the better question is, who is raising them? I can't do, and you can't do anything about what's not there. Because if your narrative, if your false narrative is that the black father is absent, then it comes your responsibility to make sure that you're raising productive citizens. Productive citizens. Black boys. So you can't say, well, it's that absent dad on one hand. I don't know why the sister was timed out. I didn't time her out. So please don't time anybody out. I take everybody's position. I respect everybody's opinion. I respect everybody's position, everybody's opinion. They have a right to say so. I appreciate y'all, the moderators, but please don't time anyone out. Not at least not on this stream. Right? It's always easier to say, well, if I had this, I could do better. But that's a narrative some people like to take when you ask them a question about the plight of who's raising black boys in these single parent homes. But we don't want to hear that same excuse when it comes to black men. If I had this, then I could do better. Well, if we got to throw it out on one side, let's throw it out on the other side. You see what I'm saying? And so then we have this interesting comment where it's a father's job to show them how to be a productive citizen. If he's not there, then whose responsibility is it? Is it yours or is it the police? Because they'll show him. If the black father is absent from the home, he's not there. Why are you wishing upon a star if that's the case? If you don't have a black father in your home or a black male positive role model that you can gear your son towards, if you can't do that, if you're saying that's not out here for you, then it becomes your responsibility, mom, to raise that black man as best you can to be a productive citizen. But if we're saying high crime rates among youth are higher in the black communities, and 70% of these single mothers are single mothers that are raising these children, are we blaming the children? Or are we going to continue to blame the absentee fathers who are not there? They're not there. That's your narrative. Live with that. They're not there. So if they're not there, you can't put it on the child. It's a child. It's a child. But me being involved in education, and as an educator, you know what I see? I see people leaving the raising of their children to the system. You want the teacher to raise your son and daughters. You want the police to raise your sons and your daughters. And your excuse is, oh, because the black man ain't there when he should be doing it. So you stay angry at the black man so much that ain't nobody raising your kid to be a man. I've seen it happen too much and too often. But I don't even put this plight on black women. It's a part of racism and white supremacy that still exists. There's some people like to say, oh, that's an excuse, brothers. No, it's alive and well and kicking, and it's growing. It hasn't gone anywhere. What do y'all think this whole argument and fuss is about the critical race theory, about them teaching CRT? Racism and white supremacy. They don't even want you to properly educate your children about racism and white supremacy in this country. They want to mask it and hide it and say it doesn't mean anything or it doesn't exist. That's the narrative that y'all spew. Oh, here we go again. No, it's a reality. It's a reality. The strongback fathers you talking about, y'all need to go where the strongback fathers are. They ain't in your sister circles because y'all ain't talking about them. Because once when y'all find out where a pool of them at, y'all don't tell the other ones where the pool of them at because y'all want to make sure y'all have y'all good pickings until y'all find y'all good black man before y'all go over there and let the sisters have their way with them. So y'all don't tell each other where the good black man at. Y'all know where they at though. Stop playing with me. I know y'all know where they at. Mika, I agree. Abandonment does causes issues. But so does divorce. I'll tell you where they are. I'll tell you where these black men are. They're being raised by these 70% of single mothers. That's who's raising these good men, right? That's where they are. And if they're not there, then somebody has to raise them. You don't come to this planet being a good black man or being a good black woman or being a good white man or being a good white woman. You don't come to this planet that way. Someone has to raise you to be that. And I'm going to tell you where they are. Those good black men that y'all looking for, they're with those good black women, their mothers who are raising their sons to respect black women. Talk to your sisters. They know who their brothers are. They know who their fathers are. They know who their nephews are. They know who their sons are. Talk to your sisters. They'll tell you where they are. But you know what? They're hiding them from you. They're hiding them from you. Just like you mothers hide y'all sons from certain women, they're hiding them from you. They're hiding them from you. You mean to tell me that all these good black single mothers out here that are raising these children by them, raising these black boys by themselves, they can't tell you if they got a good uncle or a good brother or a good cousin or a good nephew that's a good black man in their life? Unless you dare to try to say that they're non-existent? No, they're hiding them from you, sister. They're hiding them from you. Because if y'all in these sister circles, and they won't tell you about their cousin, their nephew, or their uncle down the street, yeah, they don't want you dating them because they know you damaged. And it ain't your fault. It's because of what some ignorant black man done to you or hasn't done for you. So I'm not blaming sisters. I'm simply saying the sisters know where these good black men are. Yeah, they do. And if they ain't sharing the information with you, you might want to take a look in the mirror. They know where they are. I have four brothers and one adopted brother. And I can tell you their good traits and their bad traits. And my sister can too. She can tell you. She can tell you. You know, she can tell you about all her brothers. But oftentimes, even growing up, she said, you know what? My friend, she like y'all. I said, okay, well, you know, one of my brothers would say, give me her number. She's like, no, I'm not giving you her number. But that's your friend. I still ain't giving you my number. Yeah, they know where they at. They everywhere. They just hiding them from y'all. That's what I'm telling you. They just hiding them from y'all. And I agree, Mika. Women do like when they have missing fathers. Boys and daughters need their fathers. Just because they're everywhere don't mean that they're not hidden. They're everywhere. They just ain't being revealed to you. You get that? Let me repeat that. There are good men everywhere. They're just not being revealed to you. The reason why there are only 30% of black men married, maybe because they can only find 30% of. Are you meaning to black women? I mean, are we asking? Are these 30% of black men married? Maybe the 70% haven't found good women that they feel like they want to marry. I don't know. That's a question the women must ask themselves. Why are only 30% of black men married? Just because they're so. I'm telling you, you got to talk to these sisters. They hiding these men from y'all. They got brothers and uncles, but they ain't sharing them information. They ain't passing their numbers along to y'all. They ain't doing it. I started off black men accountability is simply this. It's no different from the accountability that black women take. But people only want to hear about the black man's accountability. We're not talking about black man's accountability. I started that off. I started the stream off with black men being able to be accountable for the negative stereotypes and narratives that are out here about them. They're accountable for changing that based on their positive actions. No, you can't marry yourself. I know some of you think you can, but black men and black women, a black man can't marry himself and a black woman can't marry herself. So to say whose fault is it why black men don't marry, I mean, that's a question that black women have to answer for themselves as well as black men. You see what I'm saying? There's no finger pointing in marriage. If only 30% of black women of black men are marrying black women, I mean, what are the 70% of those black women are doing? Are they ready for marriage? If you aren't married and you in the chat, put a 1 in the chat. If you aren't married and you want to be married to a black man, put a 1 in the chat. Put a 1 in the chat. Let's see really how transparent you are. because I think most of y'all, most of y'all don't really address the fact that neither black women or black men are perfect. We're flawed creatures by design. My idea of a good black man is whatever you want in a man, sister, and that varies from woman to woman. Poetic Empress. That varies. And I've heard this foolish statement talking about they've divested. Well, if you divest in anything, that means you haven't done your research from the beginning. You haven't done good research. You haven't prepared properly from Jump Street. If you're involved in something or been involved in something now that you have to divest in, that means you don't really know what you're looking for if you're divesting. I know these things sound cool when they come around, and y'all say these little things, but they makes absolutely no sense. If you're divesting, that means you failed in doing your research. You weren't prepared, and more than likely, you bought a lemon, and now you're afraid again that the next thing you try to invest in will be a lemon. But that's because you don't know how to identify the good man for you. I appreciate that, Tiffany, too. She says, I want to be married and not play house, and he doesn't show up in the statistics. He absolutely does. Because, see, what playing house is this. I'm going to tell you this, ladies. A black man, or pretty much any man at that, will not involve himself in playing house for any period of time if he's not getting sex. And more than likely, if he's been playing house with you for a very long period of time, it's because he's been getting sex. He's been ripping all of the benefits. He's been getting his clothes clean, his dinners made, his clothes folded, socks and drawers scrubbed, and all the sex he wants whenever he asks for it. And you haven't put any demands on it. So why wouldn't he play house? That's what you're doing. And a man can't play in your house unless you let him in. And so we have to start giving men who simply want to play house the keys. Stop giving them the keys. Absolutely be more demanding. Be more demanding. Because if he can't stand, listen, ladies, if a man can't stand up to your demands, he ain't the man made for you. The man made for you can take your demands and it'll be water like rolling off of a duck's back. It won't even face him because he will want to please you. See, this is what I'm saying. Right? And the fact that you view things as demands as things that you're saying, listen, this is what I want. And in exchange, did y'all hear that? Ladies, this is what I want from you as a husband. And in exchange, see that two-way? In exchange, this is what you can get from me. But when there's no exchange occurring, he could play house all day. And then you wonder why you in relationships and you feel taken advantage of because there's no exchange, an equal exchange. You're not going to say, I'm going to say here, let's exchange these dollar bills. I'm going to give you $100 bill and all you give, and I give you $100, right? And all you expect, and all I expect back is, and all you give me back is $50. That's not an even exchange. And see, this is where feminism, and I'm gonna say this is where feminism has fooled us, because to take sex out of an equation with the man, right? To take sex out of the equation with the man is to take out one of his love languages, or is to take out the way that he shows intimacy. That's just what that is. This is why, in terms of a marriage contract, sex with the man should be something that should be far from in between or none. But if you're giving man sex and you expect him to honor your to honor something that he doesn't have any contractual obligations to, he's getting everything that he wants. Number one, because number one for a man is sex, and women have to understand that. Shout out to you, Judge Melvin. Peace to you, family. The man's number one need is sex in a relationship. Women don't like to hear that, but it's because it's how we communicate intimately. For women, it's different. But if your demands are reasonable, sister, if your demands, listen, if one of your demands is he got to have a house, car that he owns, not leases, I'm talking about the home, or if he just has a place for you to say that he can afford to pay for, if that's one of your demands, right, that he opens the car door for you, he opens the door for you, right? Right? That he brings, that he has some semblance of chivalry. Y'all, like, some people like to take the narrative that chivalry is dead. Chivalry only died because women stopped demanding it. Women do want sex too, Asiatic, but it's not number one on their list. Number one on a woman's list is security. She needs security. Now, security can come in many different forms. That's why I don't agree with calling women gold diggers. Because money is a form of security. And security for women comes in many different forms. For some it's women, for some it's security is companionship, that main being there. That security, she wants to feel protected, right? Physically, that's a form of security. Or money. She said, hey, I'm not going to be poor. I want to live a certain way. So I need money. And I want to be with a man that has money. That's not a gold digger. That's telling you what her security is. That's her security. So she needs a man that can provide that. There's nothing wrong with that. So that's why I don't call women gold diggers. Just know if that's the type of woman you get with, brother, that's what you got to do. You got to get that bag and you got to keep it rolling. You got to keep it rolling. A man could hold out for 3 months. They could hold out for 3 months. Listen, Steve Harvey then got y'all, some of y'all, y'all got y'all wires messed up. But I understand it to a degree. You can't be demanding everything from him, right? You want all your needs met, give up anything in that 3 months, but he's not getting nothing because you putting everything in the sex basket. So if you're not giving him sex, you could be giving him something else. You could be giving him affirmation. You could be giving him confirmation. You could be giving him support. You could be giving him money if he's in a real relationship that's going to benefit both of you. And I'm not saying giving him no money to invest in his pipe dream and he won't even put your name on the document. Or he said, hey, I'm gonna go buy this house, give me some money so I can buy this house, you know, and that and that. You know, you got to have fair exchange. You got to have a fair exchange. And most times what happens is in this relationship is that there's no fair exchange for both either the men or the women. Let me take that off screen. For both either the men or the women, there's no fair exchange. And so then the relationships become strained. Right? And so usually that doesn't happen because before, and this is what I mean about those who now find that they have to divest, is because you didn't sit down at the beginning with that man or with that woman and you didn't hammer out your deal. You didn't work out your deal. You didn't work out your deal. And so now you 3 months, 6 months, 7 months, 3 months, 6 months, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line. Yeah, some of y'all do that. 10 years down the line. Knowing the whole time. Knowing the whole time he's not meeting your demands or has never met any of your demands. This deal is what are deal breakers for you, right? If you're a woman that doesn't feel like if y'all gonna move together or be in a relationship together and y'all decide to buy a home or y'all decide to move in together, that you're one of the women that say, hey, look, I can help support, but I don't believe in paying rent. I don't believe in paying the mortgage. I believe that's the man's job. Lady, if that's your deal, your demand, you're supposed to put that on the table from Jump Street. So he'll know that that's his position. I'm a woman that expect my car door to be open every time I get in and out of it. Every door. That's your position. That should be on the table. That should be a part of your deal. If part of the deal is he got to spend X amount of time with you, he got to take you on X amount of vacations. If that's what you got to do, if that's what you want, then that got to be a part of your deal up front. So at least he'll know what to expect. Then that leaves him with no excuses. So he can't come around and say, you know what, I never knew that. You'll be like, no, see, here's the deal. This was the deal. Right? Expecting a man to be a mind reader not going to help you, sister. If you want a man to learn you properly, you have to teach him properly. Some men don't like hearing that. But the only way, brother, you can really, and this is to the brothers, the only way you can really please the woman that you're with is that you allow her to teach you what makes her happy. That's it. That's it. Because you could be doing a whole lot of good things for a long time and they don't make her happy because you didn't ask her. Well, you ain't figured it out what made her happy. Every woman doesn't want the same thing. Every woman doesn't care about the same thing. Like I said, all women, their number one need is security. That's number one with them in a relationship. Security. But it comes in different forms. If she's telling you her security, listen, we got to have at least 250K in the bank at all times. At all times. then brother, you got to be the man that's gonna get that 250K plus. Because she's saying leave that in the bank. Don't touch that. So you got to get more than that. So you got to go at least and get 750,000. So you gotta understand who you're working with and who you're dealing with. So that's what I mean, sisters, about laying out your deal. Not many black men earn that, but that again, that goes back to that woman. It goes back to that woman, Poetic Empress. If she's saying she wants 250,000 in the bank, then she knows she got to get a man who can earn at least 750,000. That's what I'm saying. That's on her. That's on her. Because you're right, not many men make that amount of money on average, regardless of race, color, or age. That's on her. And some women, you have to learn, and listen, you got to be honest. You have to learn to live with your demands, because some of your demands are going to keep you lonely. And I'm not saying one shouldn't have their demands and what they choose. That's on you, sweetheart. You're entitled to whatever demands you want to have. They're yours. But you have to live with those demands as well. Right? And so Tiffany says 50-50 is a turnoff. That's what I was just saying. Some women be like, hey, look, I'm not paying, we ain't going half on these bills. We ain't going half on the mortgage. We ain't going half on nothing. You're going to pay that. Now, I'll make sure you eat good. I might even go shopping to make sure you look good. Right? But I'm not paying all that. But see, that's what I'm saying. Right? That's what I'm saying. It depends on what your deal is. And Tiffany too say my deal is we ain't doing nothing Dutch. We ain't doing nothing Dutch. We can't even go to Amsterdam. We ain't doing nothing Dutch. That's her deal. And the brother she get with has to understand that and accept that he understands that that's her deal. But then I got melanated dollars, peace to you, sister, that says, look, I'm not against 50-50. But that man better understand he ain't no leader. Because if I'm paying half the bills, I got half to say so. That's your deal. And y'all got to have those conversations up front. And if it runs him off up front, trust me, that's cool because it's going to run him off later. So you might as well give it to him up front. Now I got another sister that says, I believe this is a sister, the Campground TV. It says, I want someone who's going to lead with me. I used to have somebody tell me, say, anything with two heads is a monster. I'm not saying I believe that. I'm just saying I used to have old folks used to tell me that anything with two heads is a monster. You only got one head pilot, but you got a co-pilot. That's that's what they used to say. But I understand that times are different. Now, women, let me say this. Men and women do not think alike. Right? And so sometimes both men and women are not as good leaders as they think they are. Right? they're not as financially strong or stable as they think they are. And so you got to know that about your man. And you got to know that about your woman. You might want to lead. You might want to lead together, right? But if he ain't good with finances, sister, then you got to say, "Hey, look, I got to take over." Right? I got to take over. I got to take the lead here. You know what I'm saying? You got to be honest like that. And vice versa. Some women aren't good with money. You know, they think it's more important than catching that last sale than paying that electric bill. This sale ain't gonna come. These sales don't come around too often. No, some women think, and Tiffany, some women think that men should think like them. Shout out Suave in the Argument League. I'm gonna turn it over. So you get Suave Boss, man. People's champ. People hear your voice. Some women think like that, man. But my whole point of this stream is that black men, your accountability is not to accept the narrative that you don't like, but it's to change the narrative that you don't like through your actions. That's how I started the stream. And that was my whole point in bringing out any of this. So if people are not going to look and bringing you the positive data, you can go find the positive data for yourself and work off of that. Link is in the chat. You know, you have to work off that. Absolutely. Black man accountability is not a gender war. I think, black man, it's a waste of your time to be arguing back and forth about what any demographic thinks about you. You have too much to do. Shout out to the champ, Anonymous Hebrew, man, in the building.
Yo, peace to you here, Judge YARAH. I wanted to let you go through and get your whole joint out for we came up here and started running our mouth a little bit.
It's a thing, man.
I wanted to let you get it all out. I mean, I think you made excellent points. I think it's and I think people get lost with the first point that you were explaining about black men. It's time to change the narrative, right? That's the ultimate understanding that should come here. Is it's time for us to change the narrative, right? If you want to see change, you don't like how we're being represented in this community. You don't like how we're being represented publicly, especially if you feel like that representation is a lie. Right. Then we got to do the things necessary to change that narrative. It's not just good enough to sit here and argue the sisters down and say, "Oh, well, you don't know what you're talking about." No, we got to show them that. Right. We got to show them that. I deal constantly with men that are family men, black men that are family men, black men that do take their responsibilities and their job serious, right? At some point in time, you gotta take that serious. At some point in time, you gotta take that serious. Some point in time, you gotta get out here and show what the situation is. Now, that's not to say though that there aren't black men out here, and many black men out here, who have contributed to this horrible narrative. Right? We're not gonna sit here and act like that.
Right.
And men like yourself, myself, we're extremely hard on those men. Right? We're extremely focused on the attack if we do come across those situations. But now moving forward though, right? We got to be honest. And I think you had said something else good about I expect my sisters to raise the standard as well, right? The woman that I'm married to, she had a standard that I had to meet. I had a standard that she had to meet. Same thing with your situation, same thing with many brothers and sisters that are married. There's a standard that was put forth that had to be met. You know, if we start to see that on both sides, that's how the end of divestment happens, right? I ain't even gonna get into this divesting conversation, by the way, but for those with the divestment talking point, if you want to see the end of that on either side, right? Black men with black women with black men, there has to be a raising of the standard. Hold on, boo.
Right. And so we gotta understand. Melanie gotta say, why don't go ahead, Doc. You back.
Yeah, I had to handle that. She say, why don't men raise their own standard though? Men say that all the time. Once again, you're assuming that all men don't raise their standard. Like I said, it's the job of men like me to show that many of us have raised our standard. That's an assumption that men don't raise their standard, man. Right? Once again, there are a lot of sorry men out here, right? But there's also the truth of a lot of our sisters have to raise the standard of what they're expecting from me, because that's what dictates how men respond, especially some of these men who have been put out here, and I, you know what I'm saying, like to be, I don't even want to call them beta, but responders rather than being proactive, right? And I agree, truth hurts. Put in place standards is why they run. Right. Let them run. Let them run. Let them run. You know what I'm saying? Let them run. Let the men who want to run away from the standard run. Yeah. So then the other men can rise to the top. That way you can start to be able to see what the men who meet the standard look like. And then what will happen is those other men that are running will have no choice but to look and see the men who have achieved the things that they want. And now they have to change the standard as well, right? I agree that men have to change their standard. But if I'm telling brothers, look, here's what the standard is, right? They need to hear the same thing on the opposite side of the fence. Because if I'm telling men change the standard, right? If I'm telling men change the standard, here's the new standard, but then they can go out and get what they want, then they're looking at me as if to say, no, nigga, you don't know what you're talking about. That ain't the standard. The standard is I can sit here and I can play and I can lie and I can do all of these crazy things and I'm going to be okay. And we know that that's not the case. I know that my sister's going to stand for that. So all I'm simply asking you to do is set that standard up front, just like we're doing when we talk to other men. You will not blame a woman for your failures. Watch this. I ain't got no failures, right? Good luck, right? I'm not blaming nobody for any failures. I'm saying we're a community, GZ. We're a community. And so just like I support y'all when y'all say, we're not messing with these sorry men until they get it right, I support you in that. I support you in your ability to say that. I also need you to support me when I'm saying I need your help. I need your help to say, no, nigga, that ain't it. That's all. I ain't telling you that you gotta pick up the mantle. We doing that. We picking up the mantle because we're finally getting it as black men as a whole, that we need to get out here and talk to a lot of our other black people. Here we go. QI. I never teach Israelite or misogynistic standards. I love these conversations because they're rooted in everything else that you could experience with other people instead of dealing with the conversation. I teach courtship, right? I teach courtship. I teach empowerment in the household. So before you make that assumption, find out what it is that I'm saying. I'm saying men have to do better, but I'm also saying, sisters, we need your help. If you can't accept that, then I'm gonna say, like I would say to the man, step to the side and let the sisters who can accept that come here and work with us. Right? Because just how I'm gonna tell the just how I'm gonna tell the brother that he needs to get right, I'm gonna tell my sisters I need your help as well. Right? And I'm gonna tell the brother, if you can't step up to the plate and do what we need you to do, then step aside and let somebody else come. Then I'm gonna say the same thing from the other brother or to the sisters. And I agree with you, Camp Grounds. We learn from our failures. So if you want to say that I got lessons, yes. But to say like, oh, I'm raising a family, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Everything that you say a black man is supposed to be doing, I'm out here. I'm out here getting it in. And so what I'm saying is, it's time for us to be honest and say, some of these things are talking points that we got to move on from. Some of these things are true, but some of these things are talking points that we got to move on from in order to forward our community. Understand that. If we're going to forward our community, these conversations really got to be had. They got to be had with truth, and they got to be had where we kind of remove some of the emotion, right? And I'm gonna put a pin in it right there and see what everyone else is saying, and watch.
Yeah, shout out to you, Alonzo. What's good, fam?
We're doing all right, man. What's up to the champ in the building, man?
What's good with you, All Star?
Man, I hear you out here teaching, man. And the beautiful thing is you can literally hear him living it as he's teaching it because he has those beautiful babies in the background, right? I am not yet a father. But in terms of what I see for like my godson and stuff, man, I look at spaces of Black YouTube or Black America in general, and I see a lot of us as men having pontification, Olympics, etc., on a myriad of different topics. But like you said, especially when it comes to like this masculinity, man, realistically, we have to like, all right, peep game. I ain't meet my father till last year, right? And so I had my feelings about it. And when I had a conversation with him, you know what really had to happen? He had to speak to me. I couldn't speak to him like his little boy. He had feelings about it. And when I had a conversation with him, and he said some shit to me that I was like, oh, well, I've been through that too. So it grew me up. But one thing that I looked at was, well, let me teach the younger gentleman, I was just 17 2 weeks ago. Now I'm 37. And here's what you're going to run into. And we got to realize that a lot of the time the young heads ain't really trying to, dude, I'm an old head now. I'm almost 40. These young buggers don't want, you know what I mean? But if we can actually teach it, and like you said, show them the fruit of the labor, because what it is we're saying, listen, clean your nose, do it the right way. But, the Migos is out here showing you gold chains, and I'm showing you, a regular Toyota while they got, a $40,000 chain. Well, I think you're going to go after the guy with the $40,000 chain, even though he doesn't have longevity. So we got to make it fruitful for the younger generation, man. And that's all I got to say so far.
Yeah, peace to you, family. I appreciate that. And so, like,
who pulled up? I can't see their name.
Yeah, I'm trying to see who this is. Ikben Organis. I don't know, man. I never heard the name before, but your mic is muted.
Go ahead. I've heard of him.
Go ahead, brother.
Where am I? Hello?
IQ, you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Greetings, brothers. I think I give thanks for the time that you're about to give me, and I think give thanks to the concept that whoever said that black men needed to have a platform to speak, call it the argument league or the debate league, it doesn't really matter. We do need to thrash these ideas out, whatever ideas there are. It's something that's long been awaited, and I've listened to everybody else around the world. I can't say everybody around the world, but I mean, I've been in tune to the United States since 2001, and I've tuned into what you guys call a micro station. In our country, we call a pirate station. And so I've listened to your Republic Broadcasting Company, GCN, a lot of them phoned in, and nobody, well, they understand. Not everybody's a Democrat. Not everybody's a slave. Not everybody doesn't understand that the Civil War is over slavery. Not everybody thinks, it's just crazy. From my perspective, being the person that I am, and being that person that does investigate, I call myself a social detective, and I do that for purposeful reasons, but that's not the point. I have to analyze what I just heard from the broadcast. And the broadcast, my summation is, and what was your fucking purpose, bruv? Because some of the data that you said, or some of the talking points made a lot of sense. We all agree in part until you actually examine the stats and stuff like that. And then you put up I think I joined it, not at the beginning, but you had I don't even know if it was a published paper, a journal. I don't know what it was. But the way it was written, was written badly. And if you
But get to your point.
Sorry?
Get to your point, man. You drawing this out. I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
I'm getting there. If you write something and it's important and you want people to read it, understand it, get your grammar right. I don't know if you've heard of a guy named Brother Reggie. He's part of the HOK. He's got a PDF up there called the Black City Plan. Okay, nobody's heard of it. Maybe I should just move on then. My point is, if you speak loud, shout loud, run your mouth a lot, at least have the backative to stand on what you say, put it in print, not in an argument barbershop shit, put it in print and write it properly. If you can't properly, is a caveat. If you cannot do it properly, you can write any shit you want, but if it's not properly written, it means nothing. And I don't care who quotes from stuff that's not properly written. And that guy did that.
All right,
Yep.
Nick,
Appreciate you.
Listen to you.
Yeah, I was just about to say, man, we don't remove this dude. Hey, listen, bro, come up here and talk about what we talking about.
We don't know nothing about Reggie paper, whatever brother Reggie wrote, brother Reggie, and whatever. And so, yeah, broadcast from across the ocean. Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, yeah, man. So I just wanted to, I just want to be on for a few minutes. I don't know what the thing is, bro, but whatever it is, you know.
Yeah, and I thought you was making excellent points. QI, I already got my thoughts about a lot of things you say, sis. We good. My definition of community would be a feeling or fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. All right. And that's what we're trying to cultivate. That's what we're hopefully trying to build to around here, where we can find commonality in our interests and our goals of how to move the community forward. That does not mean that we'll all be thinking the same thing in every aspect of life. But at least when it comes to how we interact and how we raise our families, because the one thing that we have to admit is there is a problem, right? Now, when we start to go into the correlations or the basis of the precipitating events for these problems, yeah, we're gonna start to get into our own different understandings, our own different experiences, different ideologies, different things that we've read, and that's when we got to come to the table and be able to have a conversation. But it is my goal, and as well as a lot of the other brothers' goals that I know I deal with, to figure out how to shape that community, and that revolves around these interests, and that revolves around these common attitudes, these goals. So, for instance, what are our attitudes towards the family? What are our goals towards the family? It can't just be all, oh, because you're a Hebrew, you're misogynistic. No, that's not the case. We empower people in my household, right? It can't just be because you're a black man, you support all the other ignorance that these other black men do. No, that's not it. But it also can't be just because you're a black woman that everything you say is 100% right. This is a community, and we're trying to hear you. And I agree with much of what I hear, but I also need for you, if you want me to fight, I'm fighting already, right? You want me to say I'm setting a standard in this community, I need that standard upholded. I need that standard upheld, I should say. That's a horrible choice of uphold it. Uphold it ain't a word for y'all. Don't use that one. But I need that standard upheld because we're moving into a space where, as a black man, I'm going to hold myself accountable.
Let me ask you something with that, with the needing of it. And I know this is going to sound like pandering. Do you think, as a collective, not individually, but as a collective, black men are giving our women something to support?
Giving them something to what?
Or with having that plan, right, and giving them something to support and follow as a collective, meaning more than us. Are we, as a collective, giving them something to really, like, because it's an uphill battle, right? You got gentlemen like ourselves, right, who are in the fields that we're in. But how many people are really trying to listen to this rather than, as opposed to, wow, what you have beats a Marcus Millichap Goldman Sachs money market account, but I'd rather put my money in crypto when I can sit down with you and learn about ABC, XYZ. That's very specific, but what I'm saying is, as a whole, it seems like I don't see enough brothers with that like mind who really want to get out here, who really want to, covertly topple governments and bring in black supremacy, because I don't believe white supremacy exists, because I believe the supremacist wants his opponent at their apex best or with an advantage against him. So when he dominates, he can show his true superiority, which I think black men in America have shown time and time again.
So, okay, let me say this, and then I'm glad you brought up crypto versus, insurance and things of that nature. I would say the conversation needs to be about just investing, period, at first, right? I'm just happy if you're talking about crypto. I'm just happy if you're talking about life insurance at this point. So then let's make this relevant to this conversation. I'm just happy that you're talking about marriage at first. I'm just happy that you're talking about actually building community at first, because that's the first step of it. And then from there, we go into the nuances, right? Not everybody is going to gravitate towards crypto. Not everybody's going to gravitate towards life insurance. Honestly, if we were honest, we would want them to be able to gravitate towards all things investing, right? Or all things for investing in the family. That's the goal, is to give great examples of how to have an amazing balance in each one of these black families, in each one of these black homes. That's the goal, ultimately. Now, do I think that if we set that forward, that people will follow it? Yes, I do. But do I think that it's going to take a long time? Yes, I do. It took a long time for it to break it. And so it's going to take a long time for us to fix it. I want to answer one more quick question too that I saw across the chat. I think it said, do we think that Black men are able to build the Black community? I think it was the question. Let me click back to make sure. As a collective, do you think Black men are able to build the Black community? Yes, I think we're able to. Do I think we are right now as a collective? No. And I want to, QI, I do want to break down Ice Cube's plan, but I'm doing a debate on that, so I don't want to go into depth with that. I love Ice Cube's plan.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah, if y'all want to know, just look up Ice Cube's contract with Black America. And we could have that conversation. I'm not saying it's perfect. No plan is ever perfect, right? But I think it's very in-depth, it's very detailed, and it's not just his plan, right? He's brought in several experts in various fields to put these things together. He's made it clear he's not an expert in these fields, so he worked with several different experts to put together a very comprehensive plan that you can look and see how it can affect the entire Black community. But yeah, I'll just say that real quick. I think Black men have the ability to. I don't think that we right now are doing that, and that's a problem.
Yeah, and I agree, Anonymous. And I want to add to that as well. I don't think we can, and I don't think we can achieve it without the Black woman. I don't think it's possible.
Man, say that again. And for the record, bro, any of you weird dudes that want to build a nation without the help and influence of our sisters, I don't even have a conversation with you. No way. I'm looking at you funny.
Yeah, it's those two things, that we really have to make sure, that we're building to create first, right? Better, healthy relationships between Black men and Black women, black families, children, all of that was a part of that. And then as well as getting ourselves in place individually, as you said, Anon, as Black men, to put ourselves in a position to do that. Because that is the Black community, the Black man and the Black woman, or the Black woman and the Black man. Doesn't matter how you write it down. That you can't have it, right? We'll never achieve it. So, we have to really look at, what we want, or what we want our communities to really look like, right?
Well, doesn't that come from us doing stuff like, again, with covert operations, right? So we have Goldman Sachs that gave $10 billion to Black women. And instead of, I frequent some YouTube spaces that contain a lot of those weirdos that Anon was talking about. And a lot of them, they cry about, hey, Goldman Sachs is giving these Black women money. And I'm like, one thing we can do is if we move like other communities, right? So for example, when I was living in Brooklyn and I was doing business to business cash events, selling money to businesses, it's a white collar business, but if you're a criminal, you can't get into it. Well, the guy who owned my company was a Russian mobster, and he was all the way a felon. And what he did was, just like I recommend we do with this billions of dollars that Goldman Sachs is giving to Black women, we get with our women and we say, hey, listen, I got a felony. I can't put nothing in my name. Put the business in your name. I'll run it. And that's what these Russians and Jews and all these other folks are doing that we're not. We got a lot of weirdos running around. Oh, why are they giving the Black woman this money, instead of getting with her and saying, hey, sister, let's create something.
Yeah. I don't really know enough about that, what you just spoke about, to really get into, but I will say this. I would say this. More than likely, the understanding is among many things why Goldman Sachs created that fund specifically for women of color is because of what we do know. Women of color are usually statistically are usually sole caregivers. And most of that money would go to benefit the children of those women of color. It wouldn't be put into, we're gonna take this money and let's build, let's put it in the next pipe dream, which most men will do. Women, they're gonna take care of their children first,
Right.
even before themselves. So I even understand. So I don't villainize what Goldman Sachs did and why they did it, but it was more so to combat, because they know that children who are left or who don't have, or who are in poverty, who may be products of single parent homes, their struggle at time is a little bit difficult. And so the long-term situation is this, right? The old adage goes, you can teach a person how to fish, they can eat for a day. Right? Am I saying that right? You can give a person the fish, they can eat for a day. But if you teach them how to fish, they'll eat for a lifetime. And so this money also helped women of color create businesses where that is a path to creating wealth. Right? And so that would raise the women of color, single women of color, out of the poverty spectrum, give their children a better opportunity in education, give them the better places to live, being able to live in places that are much safer and less violent. So I don't have an issue with them giving that money. I do have an issue, though, with men saying, why did they give them that money? Right? Mm-hmm. Well, it doesn't really matter why they gave it to them. It doesn't really matter why they gave it to them, because the fact of the matter is that oftentimes, and if you really look at the statistics, women who are graduating with higher degrees and advanced degrees in education, that number is potentially greater than black men, right? Women graduating from university or college, and even with the advanced degrees, right?
Right.
But the caveat that's hardly ever talked about is that these women come out with these advanced degrees and they're 40, 50, 60, sometimes $70,000 in debt from student loans.
My wife is.
Right. So now they get out, they have the advanced degrees, they sacrifice, they put the work, put the children to care, try to find babysitters and different things like that, trying to make a better life for themselves and the family. Now they're coming out with the diploma or the degree, and they can't find the job in their field, and they're carrying this $50,000, $60,000 worth of debt.
Right.
So I don't have an issue with Goldman Sachs giving them that money, because that money was, to pay down debt, start your own business, which loans helps the children. So I think if we look at it and looking at it on those terms, somebody said in the chat earlier, we're talking as if black women don't have hardships. No, we know black women have hardships. They have the same hardships as black men, but the study that we were seeing, the black men, and that we were reading from the legacy report, was that the hardships of black men have been in place much longer in this country when dealing with racism and white supremacy and our ability to make money and to get an education, right? To get an education in order to combat that or start and fund a business, right? So we have to look at, this is what I said earlier, we have to look at all of the pieces.
Right.
We have to look at all of the pieces. And then once we do that, then we can better make assessments. But we can't come on and say, well, they should have did this for us and not them, right? Or, why did they do that for them? And why, like the plight of black men and the plight of black women are intrinsically and genetically tied to each other. Like there's no way of getting around that.
Right.
As great as black women do, they still fare less in the world because of their ties to black men, and vice versa. The same thing for black men. So it behooves us, and it's best that if we come together in community, as a community, both black men and black women, and support each other, push us as we push each other to a place of success, then then fighting and or gender wars or different things like that. We as a whole, both black men and black women, as parts of the whole, we're far better. We're fare better off.
I can't disagree with that.
So it's these narratives that keep the separation going, right? And so that's why we began the stream by saying, shout out to Suave Boss in the Argument League, man. Shout out to the People's Champ in the panel. And simply saying that, hey, look, regardless of the negative stereotypes about black men and some of the narratives that black men have to deal with on a daily basis that fuel some of these platforms like the manosphere, different things that they feel like they have to combat. Instead of arguing about those things, going back and forth with these things, the best way to combat that is through your actions, and that's through positive actions. Doing positive things in community, doing positive things with your family, doing positive things as men to combat those narratives, because that's the only way that they go away. Doesn't matter how many streams you create. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't matter how many streams you create. These things are not going anywhere, right? And so, and what happens is both sides fall into the narratives. And so once you start to think a certain way, because you start to believe what you hear, your behavior, it starts to affect your behavior, and your behavior induces your thoughts, and your thoughts induces behaviors, and your behaviors is your actions. So we have to combat those things, right? Regardless of what we hear, by doing positive things, right? Black men, you have to be more positive towards black women and black children. Simple as that. You do that on a large scale, those false narratives go away. They no longer have any effect. Right? Because clearly the statistics shows it can be done. Right? So a lot of times these things come to divide us, whether they're true or false. They're said, and they're only mentioned to divide us. We can no longer have people divide us as black men and black women, because then that's what we lose. Absolutely, because systematic racism hurts black women as well. That's what I said. All of that is intrinsically tied. We might, black men may seem to be more beaten down and more disenfranchised, but that still affects black women, and vice versa. The systematic racism that hurts black women ultimately hurts black men. Why? Because they're still raising our black boys to become black men. So we're all hurt all the way around. We're all fighting for the same thing. We just have to know that we're all fighting for the same thing.
I mean, to piggyback off of what you were saying, actually, I sourced actually Brookings for one of my debates, and it was mentioning black men are the key to poverty. It was mentioning that more than 50% of black children are born in the lowest fifth of income, while 1 in 10 white children is. It also mentioned the fact that, as you were mentioning, the economic mobility of black men was a big issue, right? So 2017, 31,000 Sikh men entered the trucking business at one time. So collectively, they could do things like come together and start fleets. And I've noticed over the past decade of being self-employed that we as black men don't seem to like to come together, as evidenced and stated by Donald Sterling when we forced him to sell the LA Clippers, because he said, it seems like black people who make money don't go back and help other black people. But he got called a racist for saying it. But bro, I've been living in like Brooklyn for the longest, and when I was like, yo, I sell insurance to the dudes in Risley Dent projects who had, 5 summers of nickels a sour, but they can't do this self-employment. Now, I'd rather do real estate. So I went and got my broker's license. Yo, I do real estate. Oh, no, I'd rather actually just sit here and sell bags of weed. All right, well, you ain't going to make much money. And now it's legal. So you out of business because Aki can just buy bunches of legal weed and sell it. So, you know, like if we would have come together collectively, shit, like instead of just having a barber shop, we could have a barber shop, a bodega corner store that's open 24 hours where you could go get your beef patties and your sandwich on your EBT. We'd also have a grocery store. We'd have a bike shop, a car dealership, a credit union, a bank, a transit system of our own, like we had and we should have used instead of boycotting the buses in Selma. We had a black bus system, but we wanted to be on the the white people's buses.
Yeah, I agree, brother.
Yeah,
and
peace
so
to the panel. What's good, YARAH?
yeah, what's
Hey,
good, man?
nah,
I'm getting ready
the
to
other
turn it over
brother,
to you, man. I'm ending this
man.
sprint right here, bro. I'm getting ready to turn it over to you, fam. So if you
No,
want me to shut it
I was
down and
enjoying it,
fire it up,
rocking out, man. I ain't gonna lie, don't rush, don't rush. You doing a great job. I'm out of town. I appreciate it. I'm glad to see you back in rotation and doing panels, big bro. You know what I'm saying? You are one of the leaders that appreciate actually speaking. Great convo, great control of the convo. I just, my answer, man. Concentrating on numbers, man. Like, because I feel like we are the men that the women aren't complaining about, talking to the women that men aren't complaining about. All the people that we complaining about, they not here. They not listening to us. They not listening to us. They don't give a fuck about this stream.
Right.
I mean, excuse my language, but
I agree though.
We have to concentrate our numbers and represent ourselves. Like, black men and women need to see that. Black children need to see that. I'm a black man. My concern is the black woman and children. I have no choice but that I build with black men and black women. The black men that see what we're talking about, and the black women that's seeing what we're talking about, we have to concentrate our numbers and start representing ourselves as ourselves, because they looking at the best of black men and women in the community and having conversations with them they shouldn't be having with them. These aren't your dope fiends. These aren't your hustlers. These aren't your, everyday, black men and women that you see that people like to complain about. It is up to everybody to hold everybody accountable. When it comes to holding black men accountable, black men, black women, white men, white women hold us accountable. Same for black women. It's just, certain certain aspects of accountability can't be held by certain groups of people. You see what I'm saying? Anybody can tell you, hey man, stop being a bum. Anybody can walk up and tell you, man, stop destroying your community. That's not a black man's job. That's not there's no fixture to that job. Anybody who notices the degradation of a community can speak on that. I just feel like until we really make a move and at least get a block, something that we could turn our camera on and say, look, we doing it. But it's hard to do that when we're scattered and we're outnumbered by people who aren't concerned about these things. And their answer is do for self. I got mine, get yours. Shoot, there's no value to the black family. A lot of people feel they can make a family with anybody and call it whatever they want because they black.
Facts.
And I'm not with that. I mean, do what you want, but as far as the black man, there's a uniformity to blackness. And it's clear when we step outside of those lines. And I'm not here to make excuses for nobody. So we're gonna have to define blackness as what we want it to be and we're gonna have to be the people that we ask and see. We can't keep
Agreed.
waiting on what they call Pookie and Ray Ray to turn into Edward and Charles. It's not gonna happen. They're going to be Pookie and Ray Rays, but that's the easiest thing to do is, not work with the men that's actually trying to do something and stand around and complain about the men that's not. And that's just it, man. I'm no longer concerned about those that I can't be concerned about. Like the future generations is what I'm worried about, and they not here yet. They not fucking up. They not messing up, and they shouldn't have to pay for something, grandfathered into their life as a struggle. That's just it. We got enough money. We have enough communication. We need
got
whether
enough
it's
expertise at this point.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not even faith anymore. It's Tulsa, Oklahoma. In 2021, it's a piece of that, and that's very possible. Although white supremacy still controls this system, we're still allowed to buy property and move there. We're not utilizing a lot of the choices that our great grandparents had. We got a little more access to the system and a little more freedom to do with our resources as we feel. So I think it's time we shake this thing up and get them something to be insecure about. That's just it, man. It's a simple answer. It's never gonna be a simple process, but come on, that ain't been our option ever in our life.
Thanks.
Anything we got, we had to do more than the average person to get and maintain. We've lost a lot. If all of us would have capitalized off of all of our work, we'd be rich by now. You know what I'm saying? So let's just get it going in some shape, some form, some fashion, man. Let's get this concentration of our numbers and identifying ourselves as who we is, because we can't keep letting mainstream media depict us as, because I'm not a woman, but I know that women fears are great.
Yes.
I know women like, they're scared of spiders. Not all of them, but they have fears. So I can imagine when the woman looks at the man, they're not seeing what a man sees when he looks at a man. So all of the fears that women express, although I don't feel like they're true and exact, I feel like they're exaggerated, but they are real.
They're real to them. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And you just can't tell them, ain't nothing in the closet. Ain't nothing in the closet. Stop being scared of what's in.
You gotta go into that closet every time, bro.
Yeah, you gotta go in that closet and show them, because it's dudes out here that's really calling themselves demons, players, pimps. Dog these hoes. I'm a player for life. This, that, and the other. And I mean, anybody knows that's who get the reaction. That's who get the reaction.
Let me ask you this. So what about when we getting up to go into the closet every day? And we checking the closet every day, and then the sister is saying, "Nah, you still a sorry nigga for check, even though you checking in the closet." Or they saying, "I don't care, even though it's you checking in the closet. There's no way that y'all ever gonna fix this. So y'all just making excuses." And that's the one that gets me is, oh, y'all making excuses when we saying, nah, we hearing everything you saying and we checking in the closet. Like, what more can you do? Do you say, okay, sis, this is the point when I gotta let you hold on to that sentiment until you see the change that you're looking for?
Yeah, because I mean, once we get up and we build and we do something, we start holding ourselves as examples of what we would like to see and make popular, and people are saying, but y'all only 15 dudes. We can't have that conversation with that person. That's their target. A lot of people, men and women, are saying, I would like to see men do better. If that's the truth, once we do better, that should get highlighted. Other than that, it's just a bar that you had because it sounded good. If you really want to see black people doing better, you, I mean, tell the truth, you should already have a group of people that you, because I mean, I see people doing shit. I can't ignore the black people that, you know, that's got certain clubs or organizations, schools, community groups, you know, neighborhood groups. Like I'm looking at New Era Detroit and all of its extensions. These are not dusties. These are black men, black responsible men who's holding it down. You know, I don't never hear them get talked about. I just hear Pookie and Ray Ray. So people gonna find what they're looking for despite what's coming out of their mouth. You know, so once we build and we move how we move, like even now, without us building, a lot of the examples that I see can't be legitimized. It can't be justified because that's not over here. That's not over here. And when certain stuff pick up over here, we have a system to get rid of it. And it gets dealt with. I mean, it may just be a YouTube platform, but there's a code of conduct that's held down by men over here. You know what I'm saying? So that transfers into real life. So once somebody's constantly bickering about, I guess, the boogeyman in the closet, and you steady checking the closet, the certain women that say, okay, he checked the closet, let's go. That's who we gotta fuck with. The rest of them, if we got the process to keep checking the closet and it's not hindering us, I don't mind doing that. But once we get past the point where we like not progressing because people are fearful, then we can't have no concern for that. Because if that's the truth, then we're stuck at the kiddie table waiting on everybody to grow up at one time. No, that's never gonna happen. Take the people that's fucking with you, go build something, and the results will influence everybody else to shut up and move with them. Once it's there, there's nothing you can say. And if you steadily find stuff to say, then I feel like that's your position no matter where it happens. You know, I feel like a lot of these are legitimate, concerns. But I think some of them just grew up in a conversation where this is what they do. You know, I mean, men and women, I know it's poly relationships out here, but most of us only got one spouse. You know what I'm saying? So one good man for each one of these women, one good woman for all of these men, problem is solved. Nobody's dating the whole male genre. No man is dating all women. Take your partner, your counterpart, and move forward in the collective with other people who got their counterparts, or even if they're single. But those relationships got to be the example that we aiming for. Like, look what they doing. Look what they doing. You know, I see a lot of dudes around here holding it down, and we hold our relationships as sacred. So a lot of people just don't broadcast their life with their spouse and this, that, and the other. But I don't think you could help but see it anyway in the quality of man. You could tell, look who got, by their conversation. I don't believe certain dudes have a female just from their conversation. Because I mean, it ain't nothing I can't say in front of Katrina that I'm going to sneak on the internet and say. So that's proof to me, bro, at the end of the day. But yeah, all we got to do, man, is do what we've been trying to do what we did 80 years ago, 100 years ago, in the 1920s and, teens, and just build something for us, bro, and really move there. I don't care if it's just, a temporary block where we move in and out or whatever, but some got to kick, bro. Some got to kick. I can't keep standing here in the dust, complaining about dust. You know what I'm saying? It's hard. It's hard for a nigga even like me to not look like what they complaining about because of how I grew up. I grew up in a dusty situation. You know what I'm saying, baby? I'll be back. In a dusty situation with some dusty habits. You know what I'm saying? I can't get mad at women for not wanting that shit no more. I just can't. But I'm glad I am where I am. And despite the option to sell dope and gangbang till I die, I said I don't want to do that. I want to construct a family. I want to start a business. I want to improve black people as a whole. And I think that should be noticed. And that's just it, big bro. So yeah, shout out to everybody listening. And I don't think people need to jump out the window and keep trying to counter things that they can't. Some people just got enough evidence to have the argument they got, men and women. I just don't like the fact that now when women are speaking, dudes are being reactionary. But when dudes were speaking, they didn't appreciate that reactionary shit. They wanted to be heard. They wanted to be dissected, broke down, see, tested and this, that, and other. And we got to do that with our women, even though a lot of it people might feel is a class down, a class back. Like we've been handled this. Hey, look, we got a group of women that's concerned about black men, sounding like they just looking for a better quality of black men so that they continue doing this stuff that they've been doing. You know what I'm saying? All that other stuff, man, I don't really put no gas into it. Women not looking for black men to be black women for. And as long as that's the story, man, we got a chance, and we gonna go.
That's what the issue is, though, right? And I think that's where you got stuff like dudes feeling what they feel because that we're naturally protected, right? So even if you're single, or if you're married, right, you got women who's in your life, right? You got mother, sister, daughter, niece, cousin, aunt, whatever. And you're protective over them, right? So you're going to be looking for a certain type of man, even though you might be whatever type of dude you are. You're still going to look for a certain type of dude for the women in your life, right? And the difficulty is, like you said, the ones of us who are moving properly aren't highlighted, right? So if ain't nobody focused on, Russell Wilson, but everybody worried about Future having 7 baby mamas, but everybody calls Russell Wilson a simp for buying 529 college savings plans for all of Russell Wilson's babies. But why ain't he the man for having enough money to do that? Or what's his face? I can't think of his name all of a sudden. It's on the tip of my tongue. Who paid for college tuition for the young boys? Oh my God!
Oh, at the Brown, what was something Brown? I think his last name.
Child, why is his name on the tip of my tongue right now?
Yeah. I know who you mean.
That was hard right there.
Yeah, it was. But yeah, I hate to cut your bill, bro. But hey, Schwab, shout out to the Argument League again, man. Appreciate always the space of opportunity, man. I gotta go do the dad game thing, man.
Peace to you. I got you, big dog.
So you want me to just gonna end this, fam?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll kick it up.
All right, peace to you, man. Shout out to you all star. Shout out to Anonymous Hebrew from hitting the chat. Shout out to all the ladies in the chat, man. I appreciate y'all input, man. Apologize to the sister that got timed out. In my chats, please time nobody out, man. I appreciate and respect everybody's opinion, man. Whether I disagree or agree, man, it's about conversation, man. We got to be able to talk to each other, bro. So, man, shout out to the Argument League, man. Argument League, I believe the Argument League might be getting ready to fire up. I'm not sure, but stay tuned, man. Hang around, man. This is the real place for the information, fam. Look, it's a whole lot of other shit going on, man, out here in these streets, man. But I'm gonna tell you, man, you're gonna get it right here, bro. You're gonna get that truth, and you're gonna get that work. So again, shout out, man, to the Argument League. Shout out to Soul Division Debate League, man. Shout out to Orthodox Moore, Anonymous Hebrew, Israelite and Tessia. Shout out to the Yahweh War Machine. Peace, brothers. I'm out.